I'm Jonathan Morduch. I am professor of public policy and economics at the Wagner Graduate School of Public Service at New York University, and I am co-principal investigator of the U.S. Financial Diaries project. In the 1930s, 1940s, it was very natural to think about an arc of life. You start young, you get older, you earn more, and then eventually you retire. And people would look around at the data and see that younger people earn less than older people, and then there's retirement. It all made sense. And there was a sense that there are distinct classes of people, richer, poorer, but everyone's going through this basic arc of the life cycle. Major thinking about saving and retirement all was built around that model. But there really wasn't great data on whether that was true for any particular household. In the 1970s, 80s, that kind of data started to be collected, and it totally changed the picture. The data, in particular from the University of Michigan panel study of income dynamics, showed that in fact, households weren't mostly going through a smooth arc from youth to retirement. Instead, life was chaotic. They're bouncing up and down. They'd have good years and bad years. And the story really started to shift. Not only the basics of what household life is like, but also poverty, people moving in and out of poverty. Whereas before it had been imagined, for the most part, that there are people who are mostly poor through most of their lives and people who are better off. But instead, there's a great deal of fluidity. The data now show that from about 1970 to the 2000s, there's about a 30% increase in that volatility from year to year. So not only have we seen volatility from year to year, but that kind of volatility in the aggregate has been increasing. The annual data was very revealing, but it also smoothed out a lot of what was going on during the year. Didn't give any sense of what was happening in January, February, March, seasonality, other kinds of moments in people's lives. Some data had been collected in other data sets, which did show that in fact, families were facing a fair amount of volatility from month to month, but the data was fairly limited and didn't tell a rich story. We had an opportunity with the U.S. Financial Diaries to do better. We had the chance to collect very detailed data on a relatively small group of families, but to get to know them and track their cash flows in ways that no other data set, neither government data sets or private data sets, had been able to do in the past. The picture that we get from the Financial Diaries is also very disruptive, just as the PSID had been when looking at year-to-year data. It's an interesting question to ask, what's the right unit of time? Is it weekly ups and downs, monthly ups and downs, yearly ups and downs? What really matters? Well, there's no science to this, but we do see that monthly ups and downs are creating substantial problems for households, and that suggests that we got to focus more at that level. The yearly ups and downs also matter, but the monthly ups and downs are significant and are leading to problems. We are seeing that those monthly ups and downs are creating substantial stresses and problems for households. So the Financial Diaries allow us to see who's moving in and out of poverty. So one of the most interesting things is that almost everybody that we were tracking whose average income was below the poverty line, almost everybody spent some time above the poverty line as well. That's the upside of volatility. But the downside was that if we look at people whose average incomes put them above the poverty line, say between the poverty line and 150% of the poverty line, so near poor, 97% of them spent at least 1 month below the poverty line during the full year we met them. If you look at a group slightly richer, so 150% to 200% of the poverty line, so near poor but not as near poor, 65% of them spent at least 1 month below the poverty line based on their income. And if you look at households even better off, so they're at twice the poverty line on average, their incomes, 43% of them spent at least 1 month below the poverty line based on the spikes and dips of their income. So it's big, and it lines up with what we're piecing together from federal data.